I find it very interesting that Elon Musk would present himself as the ultimate devil's champion and spend almost $8,000 to where I guess if you're a billionaire, that's not that much money, but explicit satanic symbolism. And so we see that this global climate change is really a narrative for the centralization of power. And one of the ways in which they centralize power is to move towards alternative energy sources, of which these tech oligarchs and billionaires are already monopolizing by buying up corporations and then forcing governments and forcing the world to adopt the same thing.
O Lord of hosts, be with us, for we have none other help in times of adversity but Thee. O Lord of hosts, have mercy on us.
I find this very interesting, and I relate it to Elon Musk because people see him as a sort of salvific figure. But if you remember a couple Halloweens ago, when he went to the Halloween party of Heidi Klum with his mother, of which I just want to show you guys some of this stuff, he dressed in a very expensive leather armor titled Satan's Champion. I find that very interesting, and this is one of the reasons why I've argued that Elon Musk is in a way the ultimate gaslighter. Here's his Baphomet, like, now it uses a ram head instead of a goat head, so you can see the difference in the horns, but the same upside down cross. The leather armor was titled the Devil's Champion, and he went there with his mother, who his mother is quite an interesting figure as well. She refers to herself as a sort of witch, and I was looking online, and I didn't find any evidence of her actually practicing magic per se, but I did find very just kind of interesting stuff. So here is like this is one fashion blog or something, again sort of praising May Musk. This is the mother of Elon Musk. And so the enigmatic May Musk witch. So this is a title that she goes by quite a bit as a witch. What does it mean? And apparently for her, it just symbolizes that she is a woman of power. So the term May Musk witch is a fascinating moniker that has sparked intrigue and speculation. While it is not associated with any literal practice of witchcraft, it symbolizes May Musk's ability to transcend societal norms and expectations. Her life and career are characterized by a sense of magic and wonder, much like the mythical witches of folklore. This metaphorical association highlights her unique charm, wisdom, and transformative impact she has had on those around her. And then it talks a little bit about her contemporary discourse. Witchcraft is often seen as a symbol of empowerment, representing a connection to nature, intuition, and personal strength. Now, I say all this because very interesting Halloween costume. And so it was like, what, $7,500 to go to Heidi Klum's Halloween party. Now, do I think Elon Musk is the Antichrist? Of course not. We know, and we're going to be doing the next stream is actually going to be on, I'm going to be promoting this a little bit more today on this Romanian text, Elders on the End Times. And we've been discussing quite a bit some of the eschatological prophecies and insights we've gotten from saints and elders in the Orthodox Church. But we know that the Antichrist is going to be born from the tribe of Dan. He will be a Jewish man. And he will rule a one world empire from Jerusalem. Do I think Elon Musk is that figure? Of course not. And this is why I see people on Twitter like, Donnie Darkened, who thinks Donald Trump is the Antichrist. Come on, guys. Like, let's use a little bit of more theological rigor here to come up with some of these theories. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the Antichrist. We're going to be talking about that in today's stream. But I find it very interesting that Elon Musk would present himself as the ultimate devil's champion and spend almost $8,000 to where I guess if you're a billionaire, that's not that much money. But explicit satanic symbolism. And if I don't have a photo here, but on the back plate here of this armor is a ginormous upside down cross. And this was right around the time that he was purchasing X. And this was his profile for a very long time until I'm not sure exactly when he changed his profile, but once Donald Trump got shot this past summer, Elon Musk jumped on the Trump bandwagon, and then we see him saying that things like he is sort of a cultural Christian. I mean, the same thing we've seen Richard Dawkins say. And I've highlighted in my stream that Elon Musk is not a figure that can be trusted. He's the ultimate gaslighter. He's on the both sides of every single issue. So at the same time that he warns about the devastating impact and possibilities of advanced artificial intelligence, especially if it gains a sort of anti-human sentiment based on the goals that are programmed in it, excuse me, he said the only way then to defeat the AI God that's going to be looming over us and creating a human slave race is to fuse with it, which is why he has the company Neuralink, which is also doing human test trials and presented as a salvific technology, right? It's allowing paraplegic people to communicate via the neural implants. And we did a whole stream on the history of neural implants as well. But by using these neural implants, people that are wheelchair bound can speak, they can see, they can, they get new abilities. We can see the sort of reminiscent of kind of the healing miracles of Christ. Now, if my mother was paraplegic and she could have some type of technology which would allow me to communicate with her, would I do that? I think that'd be a difficult question. And I don't know how exactly I would come down on that, especially given the emotional circumstances based on that. But Elon Musk, I mean, X.com, for example, when it was first created, I'm not talking about Twitter. I'm not talking about his acquisition of Twitter. I'm talking about X.com before in the 90s. And then after acquiring Twitter and then rebranding it X.com, the failed initial startup that he had, he says he wants to make it into basically the alternative to WeChat. Now, if you guys aren't familiar, WeChat is an app in China, which is basically a do everything app. It's your social media, it's your bank, it's your social credit score, it's the way in which you interact with the government itself. If they want to contact you, all of this is integrated into WeChat. And this is what Elon Musk says he wants to do with X.com, which gives you a little bit of insight into many of his companies. Now, I'm very skeptical of the advancement towards Mars. So SpaceX, I'm not really thrilled about. I know Donald Trump has spoken regularly about Rocket Man, talking about Elon Musk and how he marveled at some of these rockets he's created. And certainly the ability of these rockets to be reused and land, very interesting, very cool. But are we going to Mars? I'm very skeptical. I mean, I'm skeptical of the moon landing. We've talked about that. So his companies, we can see that even though he criticizes the sort of globalist radical left, his own companies and his own envision of the future is still globalist. Starlink is about providing internet access, but I've seen some speculation, and we've done this in some of our private premium meeting groups, is that Starlink, who knows what's going to happen to the internet? And we already see this sort of new H1N1 threat. It could be COVID 2.0 coming. Certainly seems to be that way. But I've speculated myself, is Elon Musk setting himself up? And of course, during COVID, he was the only one that had access. You still had government clearance to launch all these satellites into space. But is this going to be the internet 2.0, where you have to have your social credit score, where you have to have some type of X account, where you have to, be identified, you'll no longer be anonymous, all this type of stuff. He's an explicit transhumanism. When we're talking about apocalypse now, and when we're talking about listening to Peter Thiel today discuss modern technology and ancient prophecies, it's hard not to notice that Elon Musk is on the forefront of many of these technologies, which is leading us to what I believe to be the Antichrist kingdom. And so I've talked explicitly about how I believe transhumanism is how the Antichrist is going to be perceived as divine. And so it's a total inversion of Christ. And I see this technologically mediated, interconnected, cybernetic skeleton of Satan around the world as a sort of the inverted incarnation of Christ. That Satan doesn't have omniscience. Satan can't be everywhere at once. I do believe in a literal evil one. We're Orthodox Christians. But through the technology, through advanced artificial intelligence, through the Internet of Things, and being connected to your phone, your refrigerator, your bank account, your garage door, your Ring doorbell, all this stuff can be accessed. And in a way, the technology is a sort of artificial noetic realm. And I spoke with Father Deacon Dr. Ananias about this. I don't know if it was privately or in a stream, I forget. But we talked a little bit, and I do agree that I see the noetic realm, which is just a term for anybody who's unfamiliar with, is our sort of mental capacities. As Orthodox Christians, we don't believe in a sort of abstract concept of a mind that's divorced from the body, and that we believe in a highly integrated tripartite understanding of anthropology. So we have a soul, a body, and a nous. And the integration of these things allows us to participate in sort of the noetic realm, which is outside space and time. And this is what the imagination is. This is what the mental faculties are. This is why these uncreated energies of God, love, logic, reason, compassion, long suffering, you can't touch any of these things. These are because these are the uncreated energies of God that are outside space and time. And that technology, we've talked about before, that mechanical technology was about replacing the physical body of physical labor. But these digital technologies about replacing the brain, the mind, the noetic faculties of man, in which you become dependent upon the technology. And in fact, you sort of outsource your mental capacity to the technology. And I pointed to the atrophy through technology, for example, map reading, the ability to navigate space, drive certain places. Young people can't read maps. And in fact, they have to use like Google or Apple Maps. And even after they use it multiple times, they still don't pick up on how to get somewhere. They become dependent upon the technology itself. And this is absolutely pernicious. And I'm not saying that technology is evil in and of itself. It can't be. It doesn't have a will. But we can see how this progressive momentum of technology is entirely disenfranchising humanity. And Elon Musk's Neuralink, his the Tesla cars, for example. I mean, we know that these electric cars actually take up more resources than they save regarding global climate change. And Elon Musk is one of these big promoters of global climate change, despite I'm very skeptical of that. Donald Trump's been skeptical of that. And I would highlight the point that why would all these central banks, who are very much concerned with return on their loans and their money, why would they fund all these hotels and resorts, or Martha Vineyards, Barack Obama buying oceanfront property that's supposed to be underwater? In fact, Manhattan was supposed to already be underwater, but it's not. And so we see that this global climate change is really a narrative for the centralization of power. And one of the ways in which they centralize power is to move towards alternative energy sources, of which these tech oligarchs and billionaires are already monopolizing by buying up corporations and then forcing governments and forcing the world to adopt the same thing. We look at China, and they're not so interested in electric vehicles. They use them when they're appropriate. They actually have some very good vehicle manufacturers in China, from what I recently was reading about, but and some of which that are competing with Tesla. But they're not interested in all this stuff. They burn more coal than any other country in the world. And so you can't help but notice that Elon Musk and many of these tech billionaires, despite whether they support Donald Trump or they have rhetoric about America first, they ultimately are globalists. They ultimately are moving us towards this one world government agenda, of which they have monopolized important dimensions that would be required within those societies. For example, transportation. So when we look at his Boring Company, well, it's not about getting from LA to San Francisco in a short amount of time. It's about creating for him an avenue in which only Tesla cars would work, and then you'd have to get on these hyperloop trains that never came to fruition. And it's just another method for him to control transportation itself. He can control the integration of mental faculties with technology. He's able to control the internet through access to Starlink, right? These are important bridges that, if we're actually moving towards this world, which seems to be inevitable, he has quite a monopolistic power on. So when this whole thing comes up regarding Antichrist and technology, I believe that what we're seeing through transhumanism is, and this is what I write about academically, is the inversion of theosis within Christianity. And this is ultimately demonic. And anybody, in my estimation, who promotes transhumanism or believes in transhumanism is whether explicitly or implicitly, promoting a demonic agenda. And some of them are open about it, some of them less so. Maybe some of them think that this is for the betterment of humanity, but all of it is based in this worldview in which humans are somehow the arbiters of the good, the true, and the beautiful, and not that these things are objective, transcendent realities that in which we connect back to the Creator Himself. So I say all this because I don't want to rehash all these streams I've done on technology and the kingdom to come. You know, for example, we talked about theurgy and Hermeticism. If you've read the Hermetic corpus, Hermes Trismegistus is telling Asclepius about how to ensoul statues with demons. And I believe that this could absolutely be done with technology. So when we're talking about this sort of race for AI supremacy, which is happening right now between Russia and China, and then all these tech companies in the West, specifically in Silicon Valley, the goal is to get this sort of the ultimate AI system. And who knows how advanced some of these things are, but I don't believe it can ever become sentient because it doesn't have a soul. They can't actually be a full person, which if the devil and sin and the spiritual warfare is actually about destroying you and trying to get you to commit sin so that you destroy the image of God in yourself and you sort of lose the divine person of you, it makes sense that the AI wouldn't actually have personhood in our understanding of ontology and the three persons of the Trinity. But in fact, the blending and the uniting with it is the total annihilation of your personhood. And I think this really is tied to the mark of the beast. Now, is the mark of the beast just going to be some type of card in your hand or your forehead so you can access the market? Maybe that's the first step. But ultimately, the way that I look at this mark of the beast, the way that I look at this end time kingdom that's coming, and when I understand the Antichrist, I see the Antichrist as the ultimate transhuman. This is why people will bow down and worship him, because he'll be able to know what's going on in Beijing, what's going on in Rio de Janeiro, what's happening in your bank account, or what you just posted on social media. He'll have total access to the Internet of Things. And just like Hermes Trismegistus teaching Asclepius how to ensoul demons into statues, which I do believe is a real thing, I believe that Satan himself or demons can actually inhabit the technology. And that's why technology is really the sort of artificial noetic realm that we're all participating in right now. Now, does that mean technology is evil? No, it is not. I always get people that say, well, then we can't use AI. We got to get off. And maybe that's good for some people, but technology doesn't have a will. Angels, demons, and humans have a will that allows them to be evil. But I do see technology being the conduit and the catalyst for a demonic takeover and for the way in which the Antichrist will emerge and why people will submit in a very convenient fashion to a false Christ and worshiping him as God. So anyways, with all this being said, I want to highlight that, you know, Elon Musk has had a unfortunate history also concerning labor in some of his companies. So he's been sued, and it's been proven that he's had very deleterious working conditions for certain places that he has owned. He's forced some workers to like sleep over at the factories or some of the offices because he wouldn't let them leave without threat of firing them or some type of financial ramification, and that he's had incredible sort of work demands on many of the people that work for him. Yet he is presented as sort of this ultimate American entrepreneur. And if you've been following this H-1B conversation, you've seen that people like Patrick Bet-David, who has some opinions I agree with, but he himself became a multi-millionaire through a pyramid scheme. And he was actually today, one of the community notes on X highlighted that. And apparently he is trying to get his Wikipedia page changed or taken down because it explicitly highlights how Patrick Bet-David became a millionaire by selling sort of the, life insurance, but really this was a pyramid scheme trying to get people in, and he was very successful in doing so. And he's been telling people, well, the problem is the reason why we want H-1B visas, of which he himself has an H-1B visa for his YouTube channel Valuetainment for $41,000. So we're supposed to be told that these high-skilled workers, they're making $41,000 to work for Valuetainment, and you have to give them an immigrant visa to come here to do that? What? No, it's because for whatever the work demands that Patrick Bet David, and I'm getting ready to show you all the H-1Bs that Tesla and some of Musk's companies have used. It's about undermining a living wage for American workers. And this has nothing to do with promoting America first. This has to do with the subversion of the American populace and the American worker. And it highlights that these tech billionaires, whether it be Peter Thiel, who's presenting himself as a sort of reformed Christian trying to bring biblical wisdom into the conversations of apocalyptic technology, or Elon Musk presenting himself as the ultimate American firster and defending free speech while also then banning people from X who are critical of his H-1B visa or are ratioing him. There's been a few accounts that ratioed him on some of his tweets, and lo and behold, some of those accounts are no longer exist. I'm not sure what exactly is going on. And I've highlighted the one platform that I'm most shadow banned on is X. And I've tried to contact X multiple times. I don't get any response in regards to what can I do? How can I get my account restored so that people can even search my name? They can't even find me on these platforms. And so concerning this, I want to first show you guys, like, look at, this is a little video that I found very interesting. This is the amount of H-1B employees Tesla has, and it's absolutely staggering. As you can see, I mean, it's over double or close to double. Yeah, it is over double. Tesla H-1B workers compared to the other manufacturers. Now look at this. This is just all of his H-1Bs. Now look at the pay, 80,000, 95,000. Is this now we're told this is high-skilled labor, guys. We're told that America would not be able to function, that America could not have jobs, America would not be successful without all these workers. How is this the high-skilled workforce that we have to be importing in? It doesn't make much sense. Look, I mean, when I think of a high-skilled worker that's working at Tesla, I would assume they're making $250,000 plus, maybe $500,000. These are people that have unique skills that you can't get anywhere else. No, this is about $80,000, $100,000, $165,000, $120,000. I mean, the list just goes on. Data engineer. The reason why he's so, and of course he said anybody in the conservative movement who thinks that, essentially, I'm paraphrasing here, anybody who thinks that American jobs should only be for Americans and they don't want to compete in the marketplace of meritocracy, they need to go F their own face. That's what he said. And he called white people, specifically white Americans, like retards, essentially. And you can see that this just goes on and on and on of all these people that he hires. And you can only imagine that these wages, if American workers had these, I'm sure they do have these skills, but if they worked, they would probably demand a higher wage for the unique skill set that they have. But because, yeah, subtards unite. Yeah, absolutely, More. Musk is a decoy from the elite. It's absolutely true, and it's becoming more and more obvious. And same with Vivek Ramaswamy. His whole claim, and we're going to be looking at it here in a second, but look how Vivek Ramaswamy became a millionaire. Now, he's highly educated, again, comes from a wealthy family. This whole myth that these people are self-made is just ridiculous. They all come from very wealthy families. And so Vivek Ramaswamy acquires an Alzheimer's drug called Axovant for $5 million in 2014. The drug had already failed phase 2 trials in 2010. Vivek's own mother, Geetha Ramaswamy, conducts a new phase 2 trial in 2015, which conveniently is successful. Oh my gosh. And there's all these videos of Vivek going on MSNBC, all these different news stations talking about how he has the cure to Alzheimer's. They have a miracle drug. And he gets all this investment, $350 million IPO in 2015, which is where Vivek cashes out. The stock plummets by 75% by September 2017 after phase 3 trial failure. And after more trial failures, 99% loss in value and company name changes. This is how Vivek Ramaswamy became a multimillionaire, and that's in 2017. Of course, he was a super pro get your jab in 2020, And then in 2021, all of a sudden, he's a sort of freedom fighter, wearing a cowboy hat and American sports jacket that's colored like the American flag. And now he's claiming, and I'm sure some of you guys saw this, that Americans are too focused. I mean, he used dumb analogies like Saved by the Bell or Boy Meets World. Like, too many people in Americans have a culture problem, and certainly there is a culture problem, no doubt about that, and that should be discussed and brought up. But he says, we have a high skill labor problem and labor shortage in the United States. And the reasons why Indians like Vivek are so successful is because they value Screech over Zach when it comes to Saved by the Bell. So the good looking, sociable athlete. And the irony is, I believe in Saved by the Bell, when they do the SAT, it's Zach that scores the highest. In fact, I think it's like 200 points higher than Screech. But Vivek says that if we want to return back to American dominance and American brilliance, we need to venerate the nerds. You see, American culture is too focused on the exceptional physical and social figures of the world, athletes, entertainers, and rightfully so. Sports ball, Hollywood, these things are here to mesmerize the American population, and it's certainly not a benefit towards people. And we can see how that propaganda has been used to perpetuate social degeneracy in our culture. That's a fact. But also, do we want to be run by a sort of a nerdy platonic republic where we have these nerdy oligarchs and they're in control of everything? And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And people like James Lindsay, who has to be one of the dumbest people on the internet. I'm sorry, Rachel Wilson. Shout out to Rachel Wilson. I see her in the chat. We did a whole stream talking about James Lindsay. I mean, he's an absolute doofus. And his latest thing is talking about the woke right. And the woke right, I shit you not, that you can go to his X page and you can see this, are the people that believe a nation is a people and a place, and that this is a communist leftist subversion psyop to convince Americans that America is really about a group of people and the place of their origin. What? That's a psyop? And if you want to preserve America, and if you want Americans to have jobs, well, then you're actually woke right DEI. You promote DEI. What? Promote DEI? The whole thing is that we just focus on the American workforce and we hire people born in America, whether they're African American or whether they're white. Doesn't matter. If they're born in America, they should have a priority over H-1B visas so that they can undercut American workers. So this whole thing is very fascinating, and we can see how the globalization, I believe, is part of, obviously, Agenda 21. You guys are familiar with that, the flooding of first world nations with third world migrants. But this is just happening through a legal basis of these H-1B visas so that they can undercut the opportunities of people born in this country. And that's true in other places. The irony, and this is a total side note, but I am so tired of Michaela Peterson. She has to be one of the dumbest people, and I have no idea why she still has a platform. She is so dumb. Her dad is just diving into a deeper and deeper hole with all his pro-Israel stuff. Anyways, I don't want to make this about Peterson. I could ramble on about Jordan Peterson, my frustrations with him, especially of late. But Michaela Peterson is saying that, oh, well, why would, claiming, joining the James Lindsays of the world, talking about, well, why don't Americans want really high successful people to come to America? Because that's what makes America. Dude, you just got here. The Petersons, Michaela and Jordan, fled Canada and came to the United States so that they can make more money. And we are supposed to listen to them to tell us that we need to bring in more and more people because Americans are too dumb and they're subtards, they're retards, and therefore we can't actually have high-skilled labor, and we shouldn't employ domestic labor, but we should import third-world people because that's what makes us great. What are you talking about? Why did you flee Canada? And what policies made Canada unbearable? And why are you coming to America then and trying to use your guys' platforms to promote the same damn thing? you can see that spiritually all this stuff is connected, because if you are abiding by a Christian ethos, clearly loving your neighbor as yourself means that there's a national coherency and that we have to come together as a people. And just like James Lindsay's dumb classical liberalism, like the dude's never even read Edmund Burke. I'm not even a huge Edmund Burke fan myself, but Edmund Burke, if you don't know, is the father of what's called conservatism within the classical liberal paradigm. And he was critical of the French Revolution, describing that as a sort of the anti-conservative movement, the progressive movement. And he founded what we consider like liberal conservatism, which was all about the preservation of your ancestors' cultures and customs, and a sort of secular valorization of those customs to maintain in your society, conserving your ancestors' traditions and practices. That's what conservatism is. And James Lindsay, the classical liberal, now labels that as a communist psyop, and somehow you're part of the woke right. You're part of the DEI radical leftist movement, and you're probably a Nazi, according to him.